What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions podcast. I am your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at @_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30, Instagram at SportsOpinions30, and also visit the Facebook page. With me today is a guy that he's very, very Boston-oriented, to say the least, and it's going to be a different podcast than what most people hear because this is going to be a full Celtics podcast. So any of you Boston Celtics fans out there, get ready because you're going to get information overload from a guy that knows the team very closely. He is the owner and founder of CLNS Media Network, and you can also find him at the Garden Report, which he does from the floor of the TD Garden after every Boston game. He is Nick Gelso. What's up, Nick?
Yo, man, what's going on? Thanks for having me on. Talk some hoops.
Absolutely. Pretty pumped about it. So you're a Boston guy through and through, and it's kind of funny because if people are listening to the podcast, they know we kind of do a little bit of varied stuff, but I asked you, I'm like, so what do you like? And you're just like, Celtics.
Yeah, man, I mean, I'm good to talk, Celtics, politics. I don't really like to talk politics or anything else. This is what I do. I talk Celtics.
And that's awesome. And I saw you also do the Bruins post games, right? Stuff?
Well, our company does, yeah. I don't cover I only cover the Celtics for our company.
All right, that's pretty.
But we do the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Patriots. They're at all the arenas, and yeah, man, it's a great time of year to be a Boston sports fan.
Absolutely, and even though I'm a New York fan, you see, I'm giving a fair shake. I'm giving out to the Boston guys and trying to branch out of my comfort zone here.
Yeah, right after big baseball loss, man. Come on.
Oh my God! Hey, listen, you know what? The better team won. You guys have been the better team all year, so I'm not even gonna argue that. But we are here to talk Boston Celtics and not the Yankees' futility. Okay?
All right, right on.
So first things first. We're going to do a little bit of preseason because preseason looked pretty bad, but I don't know about you. I don't care about Summer League. I don't care about preseason. It doesn't really concern me. The one thing that I think Boston fans wanted to see was a chemistry of some of the pieces coming together. Kyrie coming back from injury, Hayward coming back from injury. And I think they wanted to see that chemistry coming together. How confident are you that those two are going to gel?
I'm pretty confident that, I think you're right. Everybody did want to see that, but it's hard to see a lot of chemistry in the preseason. I mean, they're playing guys that'll probably never see a regular season game, and the guys are in and out of the lineup. I'm kind of with you. Summer League was fun last year because of Tatum, but this year was kind of, why watch? And, getting this preseason over, I mean, you can't really say that Kyrie and Gordon are going to have chemistry 100%, but I'm pretty confident they will, especially seeing how Kyrie adjusted to coming to the Celtics last year and how seamlessly he fit in and improved them. I think that the two of those guys can only make each other better. Absolutely, and
Kyrie is a legitimate point guard. He's a legitimate guy that makes everyone around him better as a point guard, and Gordon Hayward is not. I'm not going to say he's not assertive because I think you have to be a certain level of assertive to get to the status that he's gotten to, but he's willing to play within a system, and I think everyone trusts Brad Stevens' system over there, but I have to ask you, are you concerned at all with Kyrie staying past this year? I know he's come out and said a lot of good things about staying with Boston. And
a New Yorker, of course you're going to ask this.
Listen, I'm not a Knicks fan, so if it makes you feel any better, I'm not a Knicks fan. But I do have to mention all the rumors of him wanting to go to the Knicks, and him and Jimmy are a package deal, going places. Jimmy mentioned the Knicks. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. He mentioned my Nets, and all this stuff going on. And is there any sort of concern from you as a Celtics fan and someone that covers the Celtics pretty closely about Kyrie leaving?
Prior to him saying that he wanted to stay, just coming out with it at Celtics fan night, I don't know that I was concerned, but of course it's on your mind, what's going to happen next year. And really as a reporter in the locker room, you get tired of hearing the same questions over and over. So it was kind of relieving you put it to rest. I would say I'm 95% confident just because, well, he said it, but it's also the most it's the best opportunity he has to win and lead a team to a championship with probably one of the deepest rosters in the league, playing for one of the best coaches and most well-liked coaches in the league, and they could pay him the most money. So I don't know, why. And truthfully, if New York, if it's the geography, I mean, come on, man. Kyrie could jump on the Acela, or he could just fly his jet into New York, and it's like a 40-minute. It's not even a 40-minute flight.
Yeah, seriously.
So I just don't see it. I'll be honest with you. I'm almost of the reverse thinking, where it's the Celtics, and though they can't technically, but they've come far from committing to Kyrie, and so maybe they're waiting to see how the knee reacts. Who knows? I mean, that's kind of the conspiracy theory speculation. But I think if all goes as planned this year, and they are as good as they were last year, if not better, then I don't see him leaving.
It's ridiculous for
New York.
It's ridiculous for him to leave, and I hate the whole going home narrative. It's been so overplayed, especially in basketball. There is nothing for him to go home to on the Knicks, and I don't know, because you see it from a Boston perspective. Me being a Nets fan and looking at both Knicks and Nets rosters, there's a lot more young talent for him to play with. If he was going to come to any New York team, besides Porzingis, there's more young talent on the Nets right now. So it makes a lot less sense for him to go to New York, but why the hell would he leave a situation in Boston, especially with LeBron leaving? But we're going to get to kind of the situation of teams in the East a little bit later in the podcast. I have a quick wrench that just popped into my head here. I'm going to throw it at you. Let's see what possibilities you think, because right now, Toronto Raptors in our division, they are doing everything they can to convince Kawhi Leonard to stay. If Boston isn't 100% committed to Kyrie, if they don't like what they see with the knee and they're like, all right, Kyrie, go to New York, what are the chances that you think they start jumping into the Kawhi sweepstakes?
Oh, man, my God.
That's a loaded question, I know.
It's not even opening night. Oh, my God. I honestly think I think this whole discussion is kind of, it's fun, right? Because you get to speculate. But I don't see the Celtics. I mean, Kawhi's been mentioned with the Celtics before, because I think anytime it's funny, because years ago I always said, no free agents.
And Nick, we could be honest. It's a little irresponsible for me to do this, but the difference is you're a reporter, I'm a podcaster, so this is a nice spot for you to have some fun and really take your reporting hat off a little and have some fun with the speculation.
No, I love it. But I think that, every time, years ago it was always no free agents want to come to Boston. Well, now every time a big free agent is coming up for free agency, they're mentioned with Boston now, because it's a fashionable place to be. So I don't foresee Kyrie leaving, like I said. And if in, the speculation world we're living in, they were to let him go and didn't want to re-sign him, which is crazy, but if that were the case, maybe they would go after Kawhi, but that doesn't mean Kawhi's going to want to come to Boston. So, and I've never seen a player not get along with Greg Popovich. I mean, to me, it's just, that's also concerning.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny that you mentioned the free agent things, because it's a really long time since Anthony Walker was the best player on Boston, and that was, that's a blast in the past, right? You didn't think a New York fan would know that name.
Yeah, well.
But it's crazy, because that was the time really where it was just Walker kind of being the man, the Boston kind of being a middling team. They weren't per se awful. They were never really great with him, but no one really wanted to come and play with him.
Yeah, I mean, for years no one wanted to come to Boston. I don't know if it was the weather up here. It's on the colder side, but Boston's a great city. I don't know. That's all changed. Thank KG for that, even though it was a trade. KG being so happy here and embracing the culture is really what turned everything around in that aspect. And then Horford, of course, helped. And back to Kyrie, when he announced it, I thought it was ballsy. It was great, because he didn't do it with the media. He did it on fan night for the fans. So that was kind of great. But then he doubled down the next day. He could have walked it back at media availability the next day, and he didn't. He kind of doubled down on it. And when I hear a player start talking about number being retired, they're usually pretty bought into the culture. And it is kind of been the trend that any player who come to Boston, they always hate leaving. It was really difficult to get KG to waive the no trade clause. Isaiah, he kicked and screamed out the door all season last year. Players just don't want to leave once they get here. Ray Allen probably being the exception. So I'm pretty confident Kyrie is going to be back and be healthy. Seeing him this preseason, man, he looks great. The Celtics, they didn't look great in preseason, and I'm not shocked either.
Yeah, and I don't think Kyrie's leaving. And from everything I've learned, Kyrie's a Jersey boy. I'm a Jersey guy as well. I'm from Manchester, New Jersey, right down by Seaside Heights. He's a little bit north of where I grew up. But every indication I've ever gotten about Kyrie is that he's a smart dude. And I'm pretty sure, and he keeps smart people around him. He doesn't keep a bunch of idiots around him like some players do.
Right.
So I think everyone sat there and was like, yo, Reed, do what you want. You're the dude, you're making the money, but why would you leave one of the most storied franchises ever? Like, we get it. New York Knicks, Mecca of basketball, the Garden. Like, it would be great to bring.
That to me is like, sorry to interrupt you, but besides the whole MSG thing just being, and I don't even look at, although it was built for basketball, boxing, I look at it more like boxing and concerts than I even do basketball. The Knicks have always been like the most overrated franchise in NBA history.
Thank you.
Well, they are, and it frustrates the hell out of me. We've in the few games I'm not covering, they're usually it's a road game, and I'm stuck with Breen and Van Gundy and Jackson. It's like the New York trio. It's just so frustrating. So I just think New York is so overrated.
Yeah, the Knicks, I think they are overrated. They really are. And I'm not taking any shots because I don't have the vitriol towards the Knicks. I know a lot of fans, but you have vitriol towards the Knicks deservedly. You're a Boston fan. But
and more so though, I think it's more the way that the media hypes the Knicks up.
And and it's unfortunate that Porzingis got hurt because they do have a legitimate superstar there. I'm ready to admit Kristaps Porzingis is a monster.
I'm like up to his waist.
Oh my God, he's crazy. But he, just his skill, you saw it in the skills challenge. He won the skills challenge. He's a very skilled player. But besides that, he's Carmelo Anthony was nice. They didn't do enough to put around him. They put a broken Amari Stoudemire. They gave him Jason Kidd at the end. Like, they didn't do enough.
Carmelo he's the plague.
I don't necessarily. I'm not. He's a score first guy, and score first guys have won. Kobe won. Kobe was a very score first guy.
But he's playing a style of basketball that is now only Doc Rivers is still coaching it. Like, it's just gone. He's a ball stopper. The ball's got to move in the NBA today.
We'll see what happens over in Houston now with CP3, and because CP3 is not going to take that. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a little different. But let's jump back on track. So your superstars, what are you expecting from specifically, we'll talk specifically right now, Kyrie and Hayward working together. How do you expect them to play together once the chemistry hits? Do you expect Hayward's numbers to be easily over 20 plus with Kyrie's ability to dish the ball? Like, what do you see? What's your perfect scenario with those two?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think Gordon is probably going to be somewhere between 14 and 16 points a game, and I'm satisfied with that. The Celtics.
So is he the Chris Bosh of your big three, essentially?
Maybe this year. I will definitely say that Tatum is the number 2 option this season. So, I would think that I don't know anybody who's not really saying that. Maybe Boston media were trying to take a little pressure off of Gordon, but the expectation is more to have another ball handler. He's a very underrated defender. It's going to take him it's going to take him several months to even get remotely close to where he was. Because don't forget, there was the dramatic injury. Then there was another surgery closer to the season.
Yep. And
also, he hasn't played professional basketball in over a year. So there's a lot there that has to come together. And I think you're going to see a lot of minute limitations on him early on. So I think you're going to see Gordon's numbers dip pretty drastically. Tatum is definitely going to be more the second option, especially after you saw what he did in the playoffs.
And all last season, he was a stud. Like, the playoffs were obviously exemplary, but he was great all last season. And we're going to kind of jump into that because, Al Horford does what he does. He's just a player. He's a great player. He's going to do what he's going to do. He's going to be a rock for that team. You didn't mention him as part of that third scoring option, but on any given night, he can lead the team in points because he's just that type of player. He's going to do everything right. So You add him to that mix, and then just your depth. You mentioned Jason Tatum. You have Jaylen Brown, who's another, I put Tatum and Brown as borderline stars. I wouldn't put them there yet because they need to do it at least another year.
Give me an all-star this year.
Give me an all-star game. Give me a, with Kyrie, Gordon, and everyone there in the playoffs. Give me Tatum having the ball in the last second, winning that game, or Brown. Give me one of those, and then I'll really put those guys up in that star level. But you have those two. You have Terry Rozier. You have Marcus Smart, who was my favorite player coming out of his graduating class. The depth.
Yeah, it's a deep team, man. You got Rozier too. You didn't mention Rozier.
I said Terry Rozier. Scary Terry. I love the shirt. Oh my God, Scary Terry's awesome.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You mentioned Al Horford. I'm like the biggest Al fan, and Al every season gets beat up on out here.
He's a B plus Tim Duncan. People don't realize he's a B plus Tim Duncan. He plays a very similar style. He's just not as good as him.
Well, he's a tremendous ball handler.
Yes,
he's super unselfish. He's great example to the young guys, and this is a young team. So looking at Al, I saw you sent over some bullet points, which was not necessary but appreciated. And
I try.
I really love the Al Horford mention there. Like, how is his game going to change? And you've got to think. I mean, a good portion of the playoffs last year, he played point guard.
Yeah.
So Al's going to be a lot more free to roam the perimeter, to post up, and to find guys without having to initiate the offense. When you look at it from 1 through 5, 1 through 4, really, any one of them can initiate the offense. If the Celtics go small, 1 through 5 can. So I think Al, the one thing you have to watch with Al is he has a tendency to get lost in the offense a little bit. So I think that's on Stevens to call his number, especially early on in the game, where you might see those Horford 10 and 6 nights, where Boston media, pressure radio starts going crazy, average Al stuff. But every playoff run, that dude, like, he's otherworldly once the opening buzzer hits for the postseason. He's just great.
He really is. And, I'm looking up and down the roster right now, and I completely forgot to mention Marcus Morris, which is insane considering that.
Right. Yeah, we both did.
He's a super talented dude. And now I'm looking at this roster, too, and I see just an unbelievable amount of depth. But I'm also seeing Danny Ainge doing the same thing and going, I can make this team better by trade deadline because I have assets here that people are going to need. I have Marcus Smart, who I know we love him. Boston loves him. I love him as a player, but he's a guy that, with Terry Rozier doing what he does, you don't need two guys kind of filling the same role. Especially with all the guards that Boston has. Marcus Morris is a guy that's scoring. Now that you have Gordon back, now that you're going to have Kyrie back, if both of them are healthy, do you need a 29-year-old power forward to really, there's so many things I'm looking at here that if I'm putting on my Danny Ainge cap, and I kind of hate him because he swindled my Nets, but he's a genius. He swindled Billy King, but he's a genius. And I have a rule.
He's the MVP.
I have a rule that you don't make deals with Danny Ainge. You don't make deals with.
I think a lot of the league does.
Oh, but they still do it. It's like people make deals with Bill Belichick still on New England. Why? Why do it? You never come out on top. You never do. Ever.
There's been a lot of close deals that fell through, I think, because of the Ainge factor. Nobody wants to be punked by Danny Ainge, and he's done it so many times to so many different people. One thing you brought up Morris, and we both neglected Marcus Morris.
Who was a 20-point guy 2 years ago on the Suns. Like, it's crazy how talented the Morris twins were. And now at Boston, he's comfortable being a role guy because he knows he can win a chip. It's crazy.
The one thing that's really evident this year, and when I'm talking this year, I'm talking more in the, in practice and in the locker room than the preseason. I didn't expect them to play well, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But Marcus Morris, last year, people forget he came into camp, or he didn't even make it to camp. He was not able to play because of the pending charges against his brother. When he did arrive, he was overweight. He had an injured knee. He was disgruntled because he thought he should have been a starter. Everything was kind of working against him. And I don't think he really bought in until the latter half of the season and into the postseason. This year, he is like the swagger of that team. I mean, he has balls, man. He's talking trash, maybe a little too much sometimes, but he's lean. He's in shape, and his attitude is totally the opposite of what it was coming into the season last year.
So you're saying he's perfect for Danny Ainge to trade because he looks great.
Yeah, all those things for sure indicate that Danny could trade him, or that he's just really going to be a great contributor this year.
Yeah,
I don't know that Danny Ainge doesn't really need to trade anybody. And we did a segment in our studios here in East Boston last week on Rozier and the implications of Kyrie saying he's coming back. Is Danny going to trade Rozier? And I was the guy saying, I don't see why he would keep him, because he's going to walk. And Jimmy Toscano said, yeah, but sometimes when you're building championship teams, that's what happens. Think of Posey. There's been other people that have walked from the Celtics after championship years, and Tony Allen, James Posey come to mind. And it makes sense. So why trade anybody? If you know Kyrie is coming back, or you're 95% certain he is, even if there's a reason of doubt, that's more reason to keep Rozier. But why trade Marcus Morris? If he's happy in his role and he's contributing, why trade?
I agree, and I think you kind of have to keep them both as a handicap, just in case Kyrie goes down, just in case Hayward takes longer than expected or maybe re-injures himself. So I would get why, but if all things work out, I think Danny Ainge is smart enough. He's just going to take the flow of the season, and if he feels that, the Boston Celtics are the best team in the East, and that's not even a question, and if he feels that they're not playing up to the level they are, and we all know after the All-Star break, after trade deadline, that's when the season really starts for championship teams. So if he feels they're not up to snub, then
they're going to struggle out the gates, man. I mean, there's no everybody's going to start cliff jumping because they're going to start out, 500 in the first 4 games.
Well, yeah, if you watch ESPN, it's going to be, Boston's bad. Why didn't they do more to get this person?
Everybody starts panicking, and it's just ridiculous. But I mean, when you're reintegrating 2 crucial players plus Daniel Tice, this is that's a lot to adjust to. I mean, usually if after an injury, when you reintroduce a key player, the team may skid a little bit. So I think it's going to take time. I think everybody's got to be patient, and at the end of the year, it's probably still going to be a 60-win team and still be the favorites to win the Eastern Conference.
And it's really just going to be everyone figuring out their role. Obviously, Kyrie's your alpha when he's healthy. That's without a doubt. But then it's going to be, okay, what's the dynamic between Jason and Gordon? Who is going to take over that number 2? We've seen Jason Tatum having a little bit of swagger to him. So he definitely has that. That came out last year. And so is he just going to kind of take it by the balls and be like, this is, Kyrie's not playing, it's mine, period. That's it. Is he going to do that? That'll be a fun dynamic to watch.
Yep, it'll be fun to watch. I just don't. I think that everything I'm seeing is indicating the same thing that I'm hearing from guys like Ainge and Stevens. This is an extremely close knit bunch. So any struggles, they'll get through them. That's why I don't see Danny blowing up. And it's so funny we're talking about blowing up the team, but that's why I don't see him making any trades because it's not just on paper. They proved it last year. And then they've only improved by adding 2 superstar and a borderline superstar.
So before we move on to our next question, who is Aaron Baines going to fight for another team this year? Because he's going to try. A few guys are going to want to fight him because he's just a thorn in the side. Who's going to try and punch him?
Guy. Dude, he's the nicest guy in the world. I don't know. I wouldn't fight him. He's a big dude.
Do you think Rajon Rondo tries to talk trash to him now that he's?
Rondo talks trash to everybody.
What about Gortat?
One thing, and the press scrums have gotten a little bit more boring since Rondo left. He was always good for a couple zingers or just a facial expression that kind of made everybody quiver. I could see Rondo talking trash to all of them.
I could definitely see him and Gortat getting into it this year because Gortat.
I can see that too.
Because Gortat has a lot to prove this year. Let's not gonna lie. He flubbed last year as a member of a big 3. He was supposed to be, and he did not live up to expectations. He's going to be playing hard.
Yeah, they were a big disappointment. And on paper, they're a very good team. The Eastern Conference, no, it's not as good as the West, but there are good teams. Milwaukee is sleepy good. Sixers are good. Toronto. They're perpetual losers. Toronto is very good on paper. The East is good, man.
The East is a good team. Is a good group. People discount the East because they don't have the superstar factor, but there's a lot of complete teams in the East. Now that leads to my question: as a Celtics fan, as a Celtics reporter, Do you get the sense amongst the team that it's at least a finals appearance or bust this season? That is the only success story here? You don't necessarily have to win this year with this new group, but you better sure as hell make it.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, barring injuries, that's definitely the case. It was last season, barring injuries. And unfortunately, injuries took them down on opening night 5 minutes in. But they were talking finals last year. I know it is a major disappointment if they don't come out of the East, barring injuries. I mean, it's the NBA. It's sports. You always have to take into consideration the possibility for injuries.
So, yeah, you mentioned 4 teams. I'll run down them. Toronto, Washington, Philadelphia, or Milwaukee. Which one of those 4 scares you the most? Toronto now has Leonard. Leonard is a legitimate top 5 player, superstar. People forget.
Yes, he is.
People forget how good he is, but he's a stud.
Washington, he's amazing.
Washington still has John Wall. John Wall is very good. Everyone knows about Greek Freak in Milwaukee, and then the Sixers are just the up-and-coming darlings of the league. Who scares you the most out of those 4?
Yeah, I think it has to be Toronto. No one scares me, but it concerns me. It would be Toronto. That first of all, the Celtics have always sucked in Toronto. I don't know why. Typically they're a good road team,
and that's the opposite of my Nets. My Nets always seem to have Toronto's number for some reason.
Yeah, it's always bad for the Celtics. Going back to the KG era, Paul Pierce, they always sucked in Toronto, and then you have the Kawhi factor. But again, they're integrating a superstar who may not want to be there. They're integrating a new coach on a team where the coach just won Coach of the Year.
Such a stupid thing.
So there's a circus going on there too. And Philadelphia opening night, I think, is they may surprise the Celtics on opening night. Philadelphia, they're going to have a get even factor there for the playoffs because they really got embarrassed in the playoffs last year by Boston.
Very exposed.
Yeah, and I mean, but they aren't quite as impressive defensively this year either. So I don't know. I mean, when I kind of look at it, probably Toronto, Philly, Milwaukee is my concern level, and then if Washington gets going, that's a whole other ballgame because they have given the Celtics fits over the years too.
Now, I don't know if you know Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. I had him on the show. He is a writer for Basketball Society as the Scoop B. Robinson radio podcast.
I don't know him, but I love the name, so yeah.
Look him up, Brandon Scoop B. Robinson at Scoop B. I'm giving you free advertising, Scoop, so you better love this. But he's a basketball guy. He's around it all the time, talking to all the players, doing all that type of stuff. He actually said that the Wizards are the team that he thinks makes the biggest jump and has the best chance to win the East outside of the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't know about winning the East, but I know they're going to improve their win percentage this year. I mean, their overall play. They're going to be a much better. They are a better team than how they played last year.
Yeah, and it always seems that they have all this talent, and I love John Wall, and I actually love Bradley Beal. But I talked to him, and I mentioned that the main fact of the team is that Otto Porter, Kelly Oubre, Marcin Gortat, those 3 were expected to make such big jumps, and none of them did. None of them made the jumps last year. Yeah,
they didn't. No, they didn't. And they had a great season the year before. I mean, I think they took the Celtics to 7. Washington's a great team. I mean, John Wall is amazing. And Gortat, when he starts hitting that pick and rolls action, he's always great off of. He runs the floor well. He has to have a turnaround season. The Wizards, like I said, no one scares me, but I'm not being overconfident. Anyone in a 7-game series has to concern you. But the Wizards are there. I mean, I think that they're under-discussed right now.
Yeah, you're allowed to be confident with how good your roster is and the amount of stars you have there and the amount of unselfish players. That's, I think, super underrated that Danny Ainge got together a group of unselfish players in terms of the top-level talent guys. Kyrie, Gordon, Horford. It's yet to be seen about Tatum really when he gets into his hay, but right now Tatum doesn't seem like a selfish dude. Neither does Jaylen Brown.
Selfish dude.
So it's great. And that's the type of team you're going to need to compete against the West. The teams in the West that are really the top 3 to make the finals, Warriors, Lakers, Rockets. Out of those 3, who would you like to see? Who do you think the Celtics match up best against?
Warriors, Lakers, Rockets?
Yep.
Okay, so you're asking me who I would like to see from what standpoint, entertainment or for the Celtics' chances to win?
Let's give a little bit of both. Give entertainment first, and then chances to win second.
Dude, I'm old school, man. I would love to see Celtics Lakers.
That would be amazing.
I mean, I've seen it I'm old, so I've seen it many times a couple times that I can remember as a kid, and then, 2008 and 2010. It's always fun in Boston to see LeBron. However, I think it might be nice to not see him 1 year too.
You finally got rid of him.
Yeah, and I mean the Warriors. I mean they're just effing amazing. You know, they're just fun to watch. I think they're due to have a year where they kind of maybe flop in the playoffs a little bit. It's not easy to have been competing at the high level for the amount of time that they have.
They were legitimately
next year.
They were legitimately bored during the regular season last year, and it showed. Yeah. So it might be a really either a wake up year this year or a bad year in terms of their level.
And at what point in the season is Chris Paul going to get injured?
Yeah.
Or Carmelo going to break up that locker room? So not worried about them at all. Plus, they play the Celtic style of basketball. I mean, the Celtics are better coached. So. And that's the thing. You said it. I mean, Danny Ainge put these players together, but Brad Stevens has gotten them to buy in. And that I think, is the reason why I could say that I'm not really scared of anybody. Now, talk to me in January. I might say I have a different story, but it scares me. A couple concern me. But really the fact that these players are so bought in to the system, to the culture, to the city, it leads me to believe that, they're going to be unselfish and they are going to be able to overcome adversity. Hell, they did last year, enough adversity last year. So it's going to be a fun season, man. I'm truly pumped for Tuesday.
I'm actually excited for the Nets season because I think they're going to improve as well. So I'm pumped for the NBA to start. Yeah. And Brad Stevens is one of the rare college coaches to actually translate to the NBA and be immediately successful. I had my run with John Calipari and the Nets, and we all know how that went.
Well, we had Patino, don't forget. So,
all right, well.
I just said we. Brad Stevens, he's a genius. I was always a Doc Rivers guy. It was hard to see Doc go, and there's such different polarly opposite type personalities. But Brad Stevens came in at the right time because the style of basketball that he was preaching at Butler is what was really starting to infiltrate the NBA. And if Brad has had as much his hands on the shape of the style of play that the NBA has right now as much as anybody else, if not the most. I mean, he's playing positionless basketball. It's fast basketball, lots of ball movement, lots of, I don't know if I would call them totally high percentage shots because of the distance, but if they're open, he considers it take the shot. And he's a player's coach, so you don't get too much better than that.
That just makes me really happy because you just also described Kenny Atkinson, and it makes me so much better about him. Makes me feel so much better about him, and I was already high on him. So hearing you say those things about Stevens, and that's everything that everyone says about Atkinson, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, because we're about to wrap this up, you think Boston's going to beat the Astros? You're a Boston guy, so I know you have an opinion.
And I'm going to share a secret with you because you've been going all in on Boston, New York. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I'm a Yankees fan.
Oh, wow. Hey, there you go. But I know you cover Boston, so.
I'm still kind of course, it's really hard. Like, man, that's probably some of the hardest things. I was at game 2, I want to say, of Yankees, Red Sox, and I was like, discombobulated because during the regular season, because of the company I work with, I root for the Red Sox, right? Unless they're playing the Yankees, then I root for the Yankees. In the playoffs, it's better for business if the series goes further. So I'm kind of like rooting for the Yankees, but at the same time feeling guilty. It's a terrible situation. So to answer that, totally didn't answer your question. To answer your question, yeah, I think the Red Sox were the best team in baseball all year long. If they could overcome their piss-ass pitching, I think they could beat anybody, and I think they could beat the Astros. Yes, I would say yes.
Awesome. A Pennsylvania kid that roots for the Yankees and somehow likes the Celtics. I'm confused. Very confused.
You should be. Most people are.
But
all I can say is I tell people a lot, when I don't tell often, that I'm not a Red Sox fan. But when people ask, I say, think about the Yankees franchise and then think about the Celtics franchise. They're two very, very similar when you talk about the tradition and the amount of championships and the retired numbers. I lived right on the New York and Northeast PA, so on the New York border. I grew up, and my father was a diehard Yankees fan, and he was also a Celtics fan. So if you look in my living room right now, I'm looking at an autographed Bill Russell basketball sitting right next to an autographed Mickey Mantle baseball. So if that's not showing diversity in the city of Boston, I don't know what is.
So I guess I'll give you a pass on that. I guess you earned yourself a pass. But honestly, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking some time to join me. There was Nick Gelso. He is the CEO and founder of CLNS Media. You can also hear him on the Garden Report after every single Celtics game. Go support CLNS Media Network. It's an awesome network. They cover everything Boston. Even if you're not a Boston fan, check it out because they do a great job with what they do. Nick, where can people find you on Twitter again?
Yeah, I'm at CLNS_Nick. So yeah, give me a follow there, and I try to interact with everybody as much as I can. So yeah, man, if you disagree with what I said tonight and you're watching or listening to this tonight, tell me off on Twitter. I love it.
Yeah, hey, he interacts with everyone. He even agreed to come on here, which is awesome.
I do appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Again, this is a Sports Opinions podcast. I'm the host, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Find me on Instagram at SportsOpinions30. Visit the Facebook page and also spread the word. You can hear this on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Google Play Music, Spreaker, YouTube, so anywhere, and give me a 5-star review anywhere you can give it. Only pushes it up, only makes it bigger. Again, Nick, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, man. Anytime, you just let me know. Hit me up.
Wonderful. And this was the Sports Opinions Podcast. Have a good one, everyone.